Good afternoon and welcome again to another edition of Dapsy Chess. I am International Master Oladapo Adu. Today I'm bringing to you a game played between Toritse, who was the top seed at the just concluded Nigerian National Chess Championship, the Invitational section, and Treasure Iziako, who is another well-established player. I've been actually showed like a few couple of games from the male section, and I was thinking to myself, if I don't show some games from the female section, I might get in trouble. So I said, let me go ahead and start with a very interesting game that was played by Toritse on the fifth round. And of course, in this tournament, Toritse is rated 2009. She's the top seed, while Treasure was rated 1823. This was a London system. So let us get right into it. Of course, the game started with the move d4. Um, d5 was c6 was played. Knight to f3, d5, bishop f4. The typical London system. When we talk about the London system, we're talking about the move to d4, bishop to f4, knight to f3. And one thing about the London system is actually it's always about the e5 square. White normally uses that e5 square as a launch pad to attack the black king at some point in time. So knight f3 is played, bishop to f5. Of course, the idea of bishop to f5 is to be able to move the pawn to e6 without blocking in the bishop. So, and of course, bishop f5 is actually not a bad move here. Because the queen cannot exploit the bishop to f5 with the move queen to b3 because we still have this pawn on c2. So bishop f5 is not a bad move. E3 is played, e6, c4. Normally in this system, anytime there's an early bishop f5, white wants to play c4 and then queen to b3, so that there's pressure on the d5 square, d5 pawn. There's pressure on the b7 pawn. So after the move c4, black plays knight f6. Black plays knight f6. Of course, you have to keep developing your pieces. Knight to c3 is played, putting pressure on the d5 square, d5 pawn, pressure on the e4 square as well. Knight to e4. I don't think that move was necessary by Treasure. There's a saying in chess, never move a piece twice in the opening unless you have a threat. And if you come to think about it, the move knight e4, what is it threatening? Nothing really, because the knight on c3 is protected by the pawn on b2. So that's like a wasted move. Normally, bishop d6 would have been a good move. Try to neutralize this bishop here. Bishop d6, maybe queen to c7, forcing some kind of exchange, and then knight b d7 comes, castles, and black is good. So I think this is the first mistake Treasure made in this game. Not enough mistake to lose the game, but all these things they mount up, they add up. So knight to e4 was played, queen to b3, very good move, putting pressure on the b7 pawn immediately. Queen b6, that's the normal reaction to the move queen to b3. Now c5, all this is in line with how this position is played. Now, forcing the queen to move back. Of course, they can't move back to c7 thanks to the bishop on f4. So that's why you should have played bishop d6 at some point in time early on in this game to neutralize this bishop on f4. So after queen to b6, now you're forced to capture on b3 because there is no other square your queen can move to defend the b7 pawn. So captures on b3, a takes b3. Already white has a slight advantage. Winning, not necessarily, but white has a slight advantage. So a6 is played. Of course, the threat was bishop takes b8. If rook takes a7, wins a pawn. That's a big deal. We don't want to do that. So a6 is played, b4. Of course, we have to start matching the pawn. The immediate threat is just to play b5. The idea is when you're going to get rid of your weak pawn, and after the capture, you can capture off the knight, put in pressure on c7. Of course, not necessarily your bishop. You want to capture off the knight. So b4 is played. Bishop to e7. h3. I wasn't sure why white played h3 in that position. When you make a move, just continue with the plan. b4 was threatening b5. Just push the b5 pawn. If it doesn't take, you want to take. Either take on a6 or take on take on c6, and you can start pushing again. So um, h3 is played, and I think the reason h3 was played is probably because of the g5 to kind of get this bishop exchange, because this is the only active square you can command. The king can actually gain a tempo on you. So I think the idea of h3 is to create an escape square for this bishop, because this bishop is pretty looking good on this diagonal. So h3 is played, h6, now bishop to e2. I'm going to say this again. I like b5. You know, why I'm saying this is, when you're playing a stronger player, you have an opportunity of making a good move, and you keep postponing it. I guarantee you, you won't get that chance again. You won't get that chance again. So just b5. Play the line the way it's supposed to be. So bishop to e2 was played. Knight bd7. After knight to bd7, white castles. White castles now. Back. Knight takes e4. Bishop takes. Knight d2. Now you cannot play b5, because I can just take here, or I can just take here. My rooks are connected. The reason why b5 was good all the while is after b5, the only pawn that can capture was the c pawn. You cannot capture the a pawn because the rook is still not connected with the other rook. So all these things, we have to learn these things, all right? And actually, this position has been played before between Grandmaster Ilda Ibragimov against, I don't know, Ms. Zaroz, or this was in 1995. So this is even before the London became really, really popular. So knight to d2, bishop goes to g6, knight to c3, so knight to b3. So normally in this position, white just brings his knight to a5 to put pressure on that pawn, forcing this rook to a very not so good square. You know, so after the move knight to b3, f6 is played. Of course, it's very important for black to create some play. You have to start pushing your pawns, try to open up the position. You know, you can't just sit there and do nothing. You have to do something. So f6 played, bishop d6. I really don't understand that move. I've never seen bishop d6. But of course, the idea is to vacate the c5 square for the knight so that there could be pressure on these two squares. But I've never really seen that move. So bishop d6 is played, captures back. Now the knight can jump to c5. Now, my thought process here is, what if the rook just goes to b8, protecting the pawn? So when you go to c5, I don't have to take you. I don't have to take you, right? But this is hanging. e6 is hanging. e6 is hanging. So, I don't know. e6 is hanging. If we move the knight to b6, knight takes e6 is possible. So I'm just thinking, because in the game, this is what happened. After captures back, king move, knight to c5. Now you have to take. Now he takes back. Now, white has this pressure on b7. But it's still not the end of the war, really. It's still not the end of the war. But one thing black has to be worried about is the pawn on d6. You've just given white a pass pawn. So that will be very great. Especially, you've given white a pass pawn, and then the b6 is totally under white's control. So white can pretty much just double the rooks on the a file, you know, then switch one of the rooks to the b file to put pressure on the pawn. Then we'll go to the c file to try and, you know, take twice, and then you have two connected pawns. This doesn't look so good for black. So we could say at this point in time that black's strategy is already faulty. The opening is already faulty. And I say this a lot in my videos. You know, you have to know the openings you're playing. You know, don't just, you know, get into a line and you're not so familiar with it. Because if you play somebody that knows what he or she is doing, they're going to get you in a lot of trouble. So let's keep going. Rook to b8. Now, you see, that means the rook in a8 is doing absolutely nothing. So that means black is just going to wait to see what white wants to do. So after the move rook to b8, rook to a3, b5. I have no clue why that move was made. That move really reminds me of the last game that was played in the World Chess Championship when Dingley decided to play a4. You know, after a4, a takes a person, rook takes, and now there's a weak pawn on b3. I don't know if this game came first or that game came first. I don't know who is copying who. But Treasure, you don't have to make that move. You know, just yes, you have a worse position, but you just have to. This is the principle guiding chess. If you have a good position, if you have an advantage, you attack. If you're the one that has a bad position, you have an inferior position, you defend. You don't try to get unnecessarily active, because if you do, your position pretty much collapses. And that's exactly what happened here. At this point in time, the engine said white has an advantage of a plus 1.3. After the move b5, white has an advantage of 3.6. So that means black is just totally losing. You're just losing, because this is the thing now. You've played b6. I don't have to take. So all I have to do is double my rooks and threat to take on a6, and you are not in a position to protect that point. So you're just losing in one move. Another thing I might say, maybe it's time problem. No, it's not. At this time in the game, Treasure has 40 minutes. Treasure has 1 hour. So I don't think Treasure was on any. I don't think she was under any kind of pressure to play b5. She didn't have to play b5. You know, she didn't have to play b5. But after b5, I think the game was pretty much lost for black. Nothing black can do about this. Rook takes a6. Rook moves away. Rook goes to the 7th rank check. King moves back. Rook goes to a6, putting pressure on c6. Bishop goes to e8. Of course, you're going to try to defend your pawn as much as possible. So what happened after that? Rook to e7. It's a tempo attacking the bishop and pawn on e6. Nice with the bishop. Bishop's defending. So rook e7 is played. Rook goes to a8. Rook to a7. Captures. Bishop d7. Bishop to h5. Very good move. That means you cannot move this guy because of this bishop check. Very strong. And king to h7. Oh my god. There's a very pretty move here by white. Rook takes d7. If you take back and just simply attack you, you have to move away somewhere. I can just take some more pawns. And then have these two brothers. When they hold each other hand in hand, there's nothing the rook can do. Really. Actually, you wish you had the bishop to stay in between them, but there's nothing you can do. But anyway, white doesn't really have to do that. Of course, that wins for white. But instead, bishop f7 was played. King goes to h8. Now, this is where the king starts to mark. This is the interesting part. The king says, you know what, I want to have a piece of this action. Don't get me out of this. Now this is a real fighting king, not like the one we saw in the game earlier. That one just happened. That king there was running for its life. You know whose king I'm talking about. But this king here is actually going to join the battle to make some things work. So let's keep going. E5 is played. Of course, you have to create some play. I say this all the time. You can't just sit back and just watch your opponent destroy you. So E5, king E2. Of course, you don't have to take. Because if you take, it takes back all of a sudden he has these 2 pawns. No. You want to make sure these pawns remain on the light square. As long as the pawn remains on the light square, the bishop remains a very bad bishop. Bishop to f5. Rook goes to e7, threatening to win a pawn. Forcing you to capture the pawn. Check. Wow, that's a very smart move. Captures, bishop takes, king moves, pawn. Wow, Toritse, you are wicked. At least just leave that pawn and push and kill the queen. But she says, no, I want to have everything. And actually, this is the way I like to play. I like to capture. I don't want my opponent to capture, So in this position, she just captures back. Say, you know what, I'm threatening to play d7 and d. So what are you going to do about that? Say, well, I'm going to move my king to f8, trying to move closer to your king. Well, it's time to chop some pawns. Bishop takes c6, pawn push. Bishop takes another pawn, king move. Bishop check, forcing the king back, king move. King moves forward to e3, g6. Of course, you have to create some play. But here, this is actually, this is already a lost score. There's really nothing black can do in this position. It's just a matter of time. So pawn push to d5. Bishop goes to d7. King goes to d4. Pawn push to g5. King goes to c4. Pawn push to... Now, one thing about this pawn is you're never going to be able to create a pass pawn. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Bishop takes, king moves to c to b5. Pawn push. Actually, at this point, if I was white, everything wins. But I'm just going to play f3 just to make sure that there are no 3 against 3, and then you push this pawn, you push that pawn, then you get a pass pawn with a wonder. I'm just going to play f3 so that just take all the hopes off. But Toritse said, nah, I don't need to do. I'm just going to get a queen with check and then just wrap up the game. So h5 is played. Now she does the move. Good job. That's what I'm talking about. Seal up all the kind of opportunity for your opponent to think something might happen. King to b7. Of course, you want to make sure you connect to the queen square and then your pawn starts matching. So pawn push, of course, pawn, what black's still playing even in the lost position, but we don't know. Things happen. Somebody might make a mistake. Captures. And after that capture, the game was over. So this was the fifth round. And at this point in time, I think Toritse had 5 out of 5. Toritse actually came into this tournament, lazy. It was as if, she was on a mission. And very impressive. She was able to score 9.5 out of 11 points, winning the women invitational section convincingly. Again, I'm going to say congratulations to Toritse, congratulations to every other players that participated. One thing about chess is, you have to always come back. No matter how good you perform, no matter how bad you perform, you have to come back, go back to check all the games you played, all the faults, all the mistakes, get them corrected, and bring back to the drawing board. Okay, that's it for now, and you are definitely going to see us soon. I am International Master Ola Dakbadu. This is Daxi Chess. Take care and God bless.